Lebanon is up next, and Tim asks, or states, the state government needs money. Why don't you try to get the 1.4 gram Class C fireworks legalized? And then there's a second part to Tim's email. Would probably bring in millions of tax dollars, but he also wants taxes for chewing tobacco and cigars. So let's start with the fireworks. I was in a fireworks shop recently. It's really weird in Pennsylvania.
It really is.
You walk in, and the guy at the front door has to ask you, are you from Pennsylvania or not? This was up in the Poconos. If you weren't from Pennsylvania, you were allowed to go in and buy all the fun stuff. If you were from Pennsylvania, you had to buy sparklers or smoke bombs or something. So let's talk about Tim.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and frankly, I haven't had the opportunity to get somebody to take a look at that dichotomy between the two. There's a couple things there. First off, we have to balance the interest of public safety over the sale of these things. But obviously, somebody made a decision before I became governor that, well, you know, if you sell them to out-of-state people and they take them out of state, they're not supposed to use them in the state.
Can't use them here. Yeah.
You take them out of state, then you can, whatever your state allows you to use. I think somebody is making a joke of this whole thing. We need to take a look at this whole thing.
Could this be a tax revenue source?
It wouldn't be that much of a tax revenue source. It really wouldn't. I mean, obviously, it would be some. But this is a decision that the legislature has had to make and will have to make, including the chewing tobacco and everything.
Now, that would be a tax revenue source. That
would be a tax revenue source. But as you know, I made a promise that we're not going to increase or create new taxes during this period of time. When I came into office, taxes were too high. We're trying to reduce the taxes, keep the money in the people's pocket, not in the government's pocket. And how you do that is make government leaner, more efficient. So we're going to keep to that promise. But in regard to this one on the fireworks, the legislature would have to make the decision on that, and I have not seen any bills introduced on that.
But there are some. I know the stance, and people jab you every once in a while for the Grover Norquist pledge that you signed, and I know taxes are bad under that, but with the chewing tobacco, taxes could also be a deterrent, couldn't it? Because chewing tobacco is not good for you. It's just not. It causes problems.
I don't think taxes would be a deterrent to the chewing tobacco.
You don't think
so?
No. Okay. We're going to move on to the next email. This is from Richard in State College, and we're back to talking about the Sandusky case again here a little bit. And Richard writes, Governor Corbett recently addressed the issue of Joe Paterno. He says recently, this email came in last month, about Joe Paterno not doing enough in the Sandusky case. My question, this is word for word, my question, soon to be ex-governor, is what he writes, so there's a little snark in there, is why in 1998 did you not do more? Well, you weren't Attorney General in 1998. I wasn't attorney.
In fact, I was in private practice.
Right. So that would be a good answer to that. And he also says, why, after investigating Sandusky in 98 as Attorney General, which we know you did not do, you accepted a campaign contribution from the Second Mile?
I didn't accept a campaign contribution from the Second Mile.
See, this is important. People need to
don't get the facts.
Not believe what they want to believe, but actually research it. And if you hear something before you spout off, find out if it's true or not.
But Brad, I got to tell you, this is what politicians face all the time. People hear something. You know the old example where you start a rumor at one end of a room, let it go around the room. And
the old game of telephone.
That's right. Well, this is exactly what it is. I wasn't there in 1998. Didn't have anything to do with it. This case was initially brought to me in 2009 after I had been elected in 2008 because of a conflict of interest on the part of the district attorney's office up there. We began the investigation. Not an easy investigation to do. These are never, contrary to some of the comments of some of the people that might be running for Attorney General on the Democrat side. These are not easy cases to do. This was a very appropriate case for a grand jury to get the witnesses to come forward. Yeah. And this case is ongoing, so I can't talk about it in a great matter. It's a very unfortunate case. If anybody wants to be upset with somebody, I would suggest the person who has been charged is the one that they should be upset with. Yeah.
And again, I want to stress, and we've talked about this on the show before, folks.
Get your facts.
Yeah, I know we're all in a partisan mood right now. It's the way the nation is.
But there's a great deal of passion over this.
Let's know what we're talking about.
There's a great deal of passion over, the whole thing, the termination or the ending of Joe Paterno's career, the letting go of other people, and people in my position, we have to deal with the facts. We can't deal with the passion. I have compassion for all of this, but my compassion is primarily directed at the children who were the victims. And in all of this, when I see questions like this, I think people have had their priorities misaligned, and it should be, what can we do for the children?
Yeah. Moving on to Pittsburgh, Charles writes in, how can you disenfranchise so many voters with this voter ID requirement? I believe you know this is a shameful attempt to limit certain voting elements, and history will judge you for it. You did sign the voter ID bill into law.
Signed
you were a supporter of it.
I don't see a problem in the voter ID bill whatsoever. I think almost 99% of the people have some form of photo ID. You know, in today's world, especially post 9/11, many buildings you can't go into without a photo ID. There are certain medications that are not prescription, but there are certain medications that when you go to the drugstore, you have to show photo ID.
Thanks to the meth makers out there.
That's exactly right. But even now, when you have your credit card, oftentimes if you go to use your credit card, they say, I need to see photo ID to make sure that I have the same person in front of me. That's all we are asking in this.
But it's not disenfranchising anybody?
It's not disenfranchising anybody. Anybody who doesn't have a photo ID, they can go to any one of the PennDOT centers and get a photo ID. More importantly, if when they go to vote they don't have it with them, they can vote on a provisional ballot, and then they have 6 days to send in or take in a photo verification of who they are, and then that ballot will be accepted. 87% of the people of Pennsylvania think this is a good idea.